that they would make significant progress, and that's what happened. So thank you, my friend, my sister Petro, and all your colleagues. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted that one of our most important strategies for addressing global health emergencies is to increase the capacity of all regions to produce medical countermeasures such as vaccines and therapeutics. That's why WHO is supporting this multilateral effort on the mRNA technology transfer program. There are 4 key barriers to vaccine manufacturing in low and middle-income countries, as we all know. First, access to know-how. Second, a local skilled workforce. Third, a national regulatory authority to ensure quality and safety. And fourth, sustainable investments and maintenance costs, along with access to a reliable market of sufficient size. Countries have a crucial role to play in supporting local manufacturing, particularly at the early stage. The short-term cost of saving from procuring cheaper imported vaccines should be balanced against the value of supporting domestic production capacity that will be critical to national health security. In light of these factors, there is need for a coherent regional strategy for mRNA vaccine production, because it would not be sustainable for each nation to build these facilities. There is also a need regional infrastructure planning, including how these vaccines will be procured during emergencies. Also needed a regional plan for supply chain ingredients, as some countries produce reagents, vials, and other important components. All of this underscores the need for coordination, collaboration, and coherence at the national, regional, and global levels. WHO believes that the mRNA technology transfer program holds huge promise, not just for increasing access to vaccines against COVID-19, but for other diseases, including HIV, tuberculosis, as well as other diseases affecting lower and middle-income countries for which there are either no vaccines or the vaccines are insufficient. For this reason, WHO is establishing an mRNA research and development network to provide a collaborative platform to expand mRNA vaccine pipelines, accelerate product development, and access to know-how. I thank again the South African Consortium and the program partners and the funders for their support, and all the experts who contributed to the success of this landmark program. Again, I'm impressed by the progress that was made. Last year, it was with the Minister of Development of Belgium, Minister Miriam. We were together. And this year, also from Europe, we are represented through Minister Tevina Rijn. And the support from donors is very, very important. And I would also like to thank you for the support you so far provided. But considering the ambition that we have now, I think continued support, even bigger support, will be necessary. And I hope you will continue to support this precious project that will bring a paradigm shift in addressing the serious problem we have faced, the equity problem during the pandemic, so it's not repeated again. So thank you so much, Charles, and back to you.
Thank Thank you so much, Dr. Tedros. And on a personal note, thank you personally for your support for this program, which has been wonderful throughout, and in particular for making time to come here today. It's extremely valuable for us to have you here. Thank you. So next I would like to invite the Honorable Dr. Zimande, the Minister of Higher Education and Science of the Republic of South Africa. Minister.
Program Director, Dr. Charles Go, thank you very much. Let me start by greeting the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. I'm sure you will acknowledge my very good attempt at your surname. Our Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Phaahla, Minister Twinerine, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Norway, Dr. Marie Paul Kinney, the Chairperson of the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub Program, the Director General of our Department of Science and Innovation, Dr. Philip Jwaga, the DG of the National Department of Health, Dr. Buthelezi, Professor Teblanche, the Managing Director of Afrigen, Dr. Morena Makwana, the CEO of BioVac, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It's now almost 2 years since the historic announcement of South Africa's hosting of the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub. At the time, South Africa and the rest of the developing world were at the back of the queue when it came to access to life-saving COVID-19 vaccines. At the time, as you know, much of the developing world faced a multiplicity of imposed constraints. Vaccine hoarding, export controls of APIs and PPPs, refusal to share vaccine intellectual property to enable local production of life-saving vaccines, and what one can call outright inhumane and chauvinistic behavior by some of the industrialized countries. It was, to be sure, a blight on the claims of moral rectitude by those countries. Our President Cyril Ramaphosa made the pledge that the developing world must never experience this treatment again, and called upon Africa and the developing world to marshal its ingenuity and resources to build our collective vaccine sovereignty. The announcement of the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub is one of the strategic responses to these challenges and this crisis. It is a partnership between the World Health Organization and the developing world to build our collective resilience for the present and the future. As Minister responsible for science and innovation, I also want to highlight that our hosting of the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub has been made possible through major investments in scientific research, science, technology, and innovation infrastructure, human capacity building, and partnerships, with the clear objective that it must be used for public good purposes. At this time, one leader in the US said this to me, that the hoarding of vaccines, it's like thinking that you can contain COVID-19 in certain parts of the world, whilst the rest of the world it runs amok, and hope that you will be safe. And he put it very nicely to me, excuse the language if it's not very elegant in such gatherings. He says, it's like trying to reserve the part of a swimming pool for those who want to pee. So what we are doing is actually trying to correct that. Government certainly recognizes and creates space for vibrant participation of the private sector in the development and production of healthcare goods, including vaccines, within the framework of an ecosystem that must make these goods affordable and accessible to all, including the most marginalized sections of society and globally. This ecosystem is crucial for us to build both vaccines and generally drugs manufacturing capabilities. Today we celebrate progress made. We celebrate the partnership that sprang into being between government and the private sector, including in this instance Afrigen and BioVac, working hand in glove with an impressive network of international partners across the developing world. We are especially delighted to know of the capacity building efforts in Argentina, Bangladesh, Brazil, South Africa, Senegal, Egypt, India, Indonesia, Serbia, Tunisia, and Vietnam. I'm also truly delighted to note the breakthrough development of the first mRNA COVID-19 vaccine on the African soil, Afrigen 2121, which, as I understand it, has shown great potential in clinical trials. DG Dr. Ghebreyesus, we also need to indicate that these milestone achievements have not been as easy as it seems. We had hoped for technology transfer, but this did not happen. While technology transfer is indeed necessary, we all know it is not sufficient. We need government support, and this includes willingness to invest in research and development, building of human capacity, willingness to pay a premium for vaccines at least until we achieve economies of scale, and investing in retaining our capabilities across the normal pandemic epicycles to ensure long-term resilience and sustainability. We all know, I don't need to tell this gathering, that we have indeed, as the world entered the age of pandemics. We need to develop robust as well as enabling regulatory regimes at different scales, national, regional, and transnational. Without this, it is not possible to trade and export our products and services with Africa quickly, reliably, and cheaply. We still must overcome all IP, intellectual property barriers, to gain access to innovative production regimes. We acknowledge the commitment by some IP holders to relax IP pertaining to COVID-19 vaccine development. However, ours, and indeed the vision of the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub, is beyond just COVID-19. The capabilities we are building are looking to empower us to deal with other future pandemics, as I have said, whose vaccines could use the same mRNA technology platforms. And I want to say, we absolutely committed to be part of developing this capacity, especially the local capacity, as South Africa, which will not only benefit our country, but will benefit Africa as a continent, as well as the developing world as a whole. This is a vision that has set its eyes on diseases that are prevalent in our environments, such as malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV and AIDS. We therefore appreciate ongoing efforts by the medicine patent pool to help us navigate this very difficult minefield of IP and freedom to operate. DG Ghebreyesus, as South Africa, we will also need support when it comes to creating a conducive environment for vaccines produced by manufacturers in developing countries to make it accessible for local and to the global marketplace. By the way, who says South Africa, Africa, the developing world, can't in future come up with vaccines that will be of benefit to the world as a whole? Just like as South Africa, our own scientists identified the first variant of COVID-19. Though we initially punished for that, but it ended up assisting the whole world. So we are not just looking narrowly at ourselves, but we are looking at making a contribution for the benefit of humanity as a whole. To this effect, myself as Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, and my colleagues, the Ministers of Finance, the Minister of Trade and Industry Competition, and my colleague here, the Minister of Health, have started a process that will make it easier to support domestic vaccine manufacturing capability in our country. within the existing legal framework, whilst examining necessary changes to existing legal framework and impediments in order to support local manufacturing. We are also working to ensure synergy and alignment of the various policy instruments impacting on the vaccine development and manufacturing ecosystem, with particular emphasis on the need to ensure government support for the localization and procurement of locally developed vaccines and related products, as well as facilitating the uptake of locally produced vaccines by the South African government and key regional and international vaccine procuring agencies. As we steer towards the realization of developing a vibrant vaccine manufacturing industry locally, in parallel, we are also establishing a strategic capability in a sector which is prone to shortages and price fluctuations. This therefore warrants the need for adherence to the principles of the preferential procurement policy framework of fairness, equity, and transparency, but without compromising local manufacturing cost effectiveness in the awarding of tenders in this sector. I'm pleased also to say government at the moment in South Africa is in the process of attending to amending the preferential procurement legislation such that it is able also to strike the right balance between pricing and local economic development imperatives. In conclusion, DG Ghebreyesus, you have sown the seed through your joint announcement of the hosting of the hub in South Africa with our President Cyril Ramaphosa and French President President Macron. We have nurtured the seed and tended the plant with partners and funders, most of whom are here today. And I'm pleased that today you are harvesting the first fruit, and there can only be many more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, and again a personal thanks to you and your department who've been so supportive of this whole program. Next, it's my great pleasure to welcome the Honourable Dr. Phaahla, the Minister of Health of the Republic of South Africa. Minister.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Mr. Charles Gore. My greetings also to my brother, the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros. Welcome back to South Africa and to Cape Town. We're here together in February last year, as he said, on a mission to promote the very same mRNA transfer technology. Also recognize my colleague, Minister Nzimande, also our colleague from Norway, the Minister of Development, Minister Ann-Britt Twennerim. I hope I pronounced it properly. Our other guests on the high table, greetings to all of them, to also our representatives, our leadership from Afrigen, and also from BioVac and the leaders of government here present. We are indeed very pleased to be here this morning, to be part of this as a series, one of the first in a series of annual face-to-face meetings between the Hub for mRNA vaccine development and the spokes, and also our key local and international partners in this mRNA program. Let me add to the words of my colleague, Minister Nzimande, indeed to confirm as part of the South African government that we want to assure all partners of our commitment as a country towards support of local production, both as a country but also as part of the African continent, but also together with all in support of the low and middle income countries. Let me just up front also elaborate on the matter which he touched on. I know that as we also just had a short discussion with the DG, my department is not the most popular amongst various partners, as we discussed this morning, because of a development of the last few weeks in terms of the procurement of some of the products, which are part of the family of what we are discussing here. I want to say that this development has indeed taught us that we need to be much more tighter and much more focused in terms of aligning our policy direction with the framework of the actual implementation, because what it exposed is the gaps in between, that you make a particular policy, but if you leave certain loopholes in the area of implementation, it can have the risk of derailing. Now, of course, this relates to a particular procurement of one of the vaccines which are utilized in our country. And as many of you would be aware that as political leaders, especially in our country in terms of the legislation and regulations, we are prohibited from getting involved directly with procurement matters. So sometimes when things go in a particular direction, as a political head, you're in a way caught blindsided. But as Minister Nzimande has indicated, we are working very hard to make sure that some of these challenges should be addressed, that we should close all the loopholes, because on the other hand, those who manage the actual procurement of products, the civil servants, can only be able to implement what is provided for in the regulations, in the legislation, and in the framework. So ourselves as the leadership, we have to give them those tools so that when they do make those decisions in which we are prohibited from direct involvement, they have the necessary tools so that they can be properly compliant. Because otherwise, if they are not, in terms of our legislation, they can be prosecuted if they are found to have veered away in terms of, I'm sure the DGs who are here know very well that we have a legislation called the Public Finance Management Act. And within that act, if you don't follow the prescripts, there's even provision that the accounting officer can be prosecuted. So they have to be protected in terms of that. And it's our duty as political leaders to give the framework so that when they make those decisions, they can be sure that they're indeed protected. We have no doubt that vaccination is acknowledged as one of the most effective health interventions available in the world. So it's greatly heartening to us to know the progress which has been made with the mRNA technology transfer program and vaccine development among the hub and spokes of this program. Successful technology transfer and establishment of a manufacturing capacity will make a huge positive impact both nationally and regionally in the African continent and also in the developing world, just concurring with my colleagues and also the DG. We are pleased that just in just less than 2 years from June 2021, when the WHO began coordinating the mRNA vaccine technology transfer hub in South Africa, a lot of progress has been made. We see a functional facility suitable for establishment of a fully registered mRNA pilot that can scale up to production, formulation, and into a full product. Our wish is that this will spearhead a situation where the inequity which Minister Nzimande referred to, which we experienced at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, will not happen anymore. We look forward to greater diversity in vaccine manufacturing, in the capacity, and also in the development of vaccines, and also more cost-effective and quick distribution of this technology and access to these tools. Vaccine development at Afrigen Biologics, manufactured also by BioVac, it's indeed very encouraging. We congratulate Afrigen and all those who have been involved in this process at the laboratory level. We wish you all the best as you move to scaling up and validating production in phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials, which will demonstrate whether this vaccine product candidate has acceptable safety and reactogenicity and immunogenicity as compared to the commercially available mRNA products which are in the market currently. But we are very confident that this will be so. We trust that this will enable you to build a pipeline of other vaccines to ensure that the infrastructure that is being developed will be sustainable. We value the working relationship between Afrigen and BioVac to revive local vaccine production in South Africa. We are also aware that BioVac has secured high-profile technology transfers from international vaccine companies, and by so doing is able to supply a comprehensive range of vaccines to our expanded program on immunization. Diversification of vaccine manufacturing ecosystem, as already mentioned by my colleague, is not a cheap exercise. And we know that significant investment will be required to create the necessary capacity. It is also extremely important that this capability is not exclusive to our country, and therefore we are happy with the approach of WHO and all the partners, and that this will be of the benefit to the African continent to start with, but also beyond the continent, and also that this can be increased to scale in terms of volumes as well, which will be available to beyond the borders of our country. In this process, innovative funding mechanisms will be required, both in the short, medium, and long term, to assure sustainability. This will include also the need on our side, especially as the continent. I know we have made some progress in harmonizing our regulatory regimes, and also in terms of appropriate trade incentives, both within the public health sector, but also in terms of broader market access. We need to make sure that there is more secure demand side so that this industry can grow beyond our borders. And in this regard, we're looking forward to assistance to WHO, to Gavi, and also through the COVAX facility, so that these initiatives can get support. As Minister Nzimande was saying, we believe that this should not be limited to production for our country and the region, but also beyond. Once again, congratulations to all partners involved, and we're looking forward for progress and more advances in the coming months and years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, and I was really delighted to hear your remarks and those of Minister Nzimande about procurement, because clearly support on the demand side is just as critical as all the work being put in by the amazing scientists on the supply side in this room. So next I'd like to invite the Honourable Minister Anne Beate Tvinnereim, the Minister of International Development from Norway. Minister.
Thank you. Good morning. Ministers, Excellency, Director General Tedros, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, this is truly an exciting day. And I'd like to start off by congratulating South Africa for hosting the WHO's first global mRNA vaccine technology transfer hub. And this is groundbreaking. I'd like to thank all the partners in the consortium who have contributed to setting this up, and in record time. mRNA technology is a promising method for speedy development of vaccines when new outbreaks occur. And alongside other partners here today, Norway is proud to have contributed to the hub through our Act A funding. The meeting today shows that there is some truth in the old saying that in the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. Innovations and partnerships established during crisis can be crucial for long-term solutions, and only with better and sustainable solutions in place when new outbreaks occur can we deliver on our shared goals of equitable access. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated speed and scale in research and development as well as production of vaccines, and the rollout of almost 2 billion COVID-19 vaccines is the most rapid in history. However, as co-chairs of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, or Act A, South Africa and Norway has seen that access to these products was and is not equitable. Limited regional manufacturing capacity was a key challenge to early and equitable access during the pandemic. Only 1% of vaccines were produced on the African continent prior to COVID-19. Low and middle income countries and COVAX, the vaccine pillar of Act A, were not first in line to buy vaccines. The establishment of this hub strengthens South Africa and the African continent's capacity for production during future outbreaks. And let me emphasize one point. Local production of medicines and vaccines is not just about health and preparedness. It's also about Africa's sovereignty. I believe it's a goal in itself to boost production capacity in Africa for the next health crisis, and I strongly support Africa's ambitions for self-sufficiency. Global health has long been a priority for Norway. Investing in health is, of course, the right thing to do, but it's also a smart thing to do. We have seen the devastating social and economic effects of the pandemics and lockdowns. Access to medicines and vaccines is key in this, and Norway is giving policy priority to pandemic preparedness and response, local production of medicines and vaccines, and health systems strengthening. We must use the lessons learned from COVID-19, including the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, to be better prepared and more responsive when new outbreaks occur. That includes the important lesson learned about the need for more resilient systems of vaccine production and distribution. And the efforts by WHO, Medicines Patent Pool, and the mRNA Hub must be seen as part of a bigger ecosystem. Different parts of the system must be strengthened to facilitate increased local and regional production of vaccines. And key will be to ensure that new vaccine production capabilities will be commercially sustainable. This includes production of other types of vaccines in non-pandemic times. Finally, I'd like to thank the organizers for setting this up. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is a day to be optimistic. While the pandemic is not over, and we know that new outbreaks will emerge, we are using what we have learned to be better prepared for the future, from communities to national planning to action at regional and global level. South Africa and Norway follow the discussions on pandemic preparedness and a platform for medical countermeasures very closely. We must use lessons learned towards the high-level meeting on pandemic preparedness and response in September. And together, I'm positive that we can make sure that we are better prepared when new crisis hits. And local and regional production of vaccines is a crucial step towards that goal. Thank you very much.